So should we maybe start off with introductions or something?
Yeah, maybe like what is Blockchain Beach, like what do you guys do? And,
Yeah.
you know, as much as you guys would like to share, I think
Mhm.
that our goal is to keep this as evergreen content for all the future classes.
Sure.
And if you permit, I will add this also to the Blockchain Business course, which is a series of case studies.
Mhm.
Juan and Danny both took that class. Tatiana spoke there, and we have like a bunch of evergreen content there for people to review. So
Okay.
as much as you guys want to talk about it, and the more the happy, the better.
Okay.
If you want to step forward a couple of inches, you'll catch the light.
Okay. Are you recording too?
Yep.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
May as well look professional, right?
Yeah, right. Couldn't do the jacket. So everything's all good?
Mm-hmm.
Do we need one of these?
Yeah.
All right, I guess I'll just jump into it. Thanks everybody for coming today, and thanks for having us. Austin Davis and Matt Rogers here of Blockchain Beach and these other companies you see here on the screen. We've built several companies over time in this industry and other industries. These are a few of them. So Blockchain Beach is our community arm. We do a lot of events and media and community-oriented gatherings where we bring people together for talks and educational workshops and things like that. Mostly on the west side, that's why it's Blockchain Beach. Actually started doing them on Catalina, on an actual beach, so that's where the name came from. Blockchain Benefits is our crypto faucet app. It's on iOS and Android if you want to check it out. And TGH is our hackathon series that we launched. Matt was over in Hong Kong earlier this year for Hong Kong Blockchain Week. Globalhackathon.com if you want to check that one out. And then we just did LA Blockchain Week with Crypto Invest Summit and Security Token Summit. So that was a big success. We had like 7 amazing projects that were built in a 2-day period. And some of them are currently being incubated into real companies. So that's kind of why we did it, to actually show people the diddle community, right? Instead of hodl and just about the money and the coins, like building real technology, because that's what actually creates jobs and changes the economy. So yeah, that's what we're all about.
Let me jump in there and segue there.
Please do.
For TGH, so I'm Matt. Thank you, Austin, and thanks to everybody here for participating in education. That's really the name of the game. We want to make evergreen content, right? So that people watching this in the future can come back to this and either still learn something or certainly understand the time that we're existing in here and the energy and all of the intentions that we have today, right? So it's 2019. Security tokens are just evolving. Really, the crypto space is just still hitting. It's not really even a crescendo. It's just had a few verses, right? So it's 2019, and there's definitely a lot of ground left to cover. But one of the interesting things about the Global Hackathon is that it goes to building, right? And because things are still so new, because regulators still haven't caught up, because new blockchain protocols are being released every week, there's still an emphasis on education. So no matter what probably time it is in technology, you could find yourself in an atmosphere where maybe blockchain is no longer the thing and security tokens may not be the thing, which we'll get to later, but there's still something else going on. It's all about education. It's all about staying current, right?
Yep.
So the Global Hackathon is about that. Global Hackathon is about building. Global Hackathon is about pushing innovation faster, maybe than regulation, pushing innovation, uniting human beings faster than people can pull us apart. So definitely happy to be here at UCLA Extension, continuing the conversation about education and what is an introduction to blockchain. So today's subjects being security tokens, something super new. Austin's been diving into a bit himself, and we've got maybe a little bit of a contrarian opinion.
A little bit today, because we figured everybody else would have such a, come on in everybody, such a hot topic.
What's up, gentlemen? What's going on?
Hello, welcome.
We brought some of the support staff.
That's right.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, because we figured everybody's talking about the rah-rah security tokens, and kind of the same thing was happening with utility tokens before, and now people are a little bit afraid of utility tokens because they all might be securities except for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Ethereum's an actual company, Bitcoin's more of a community of developers and people that have the same vision. But So, at any rate, let's dive into it. I don't know who is in charge of the slides here. Okay, so we got it. Thank you. So, this is just a very simple graphic that shows you about the trending evolvement of things. So IPO obviously is initial public offering when you have the shares of your company ready and available for the public to invest in, and that, as we all know, that blew up in 2017 for the coin offerings as an ICO. Now nobody wants to use that term unless they just don't know any better, for the most part in this country, because of all the regulatory issues around ICOs. And someone once told me that deals with regulation a lot, that they think the biggest audits in history are coming because of what happened over the past couple of years. So I guess get ready for that. That'll be interesting and fun. And I don't think it's going to be completely brutal necessarily. It's just going to be, they are going to continue making examples of people that did it improperly and didn't have transfer agents and have no idea who their investors are, and violated all kinds of U.S. securities laws. But the good thing is that laws are always evolving and changing, and I encourage people to always push the boundaries of the law so that we can change them for the better for us, but don't break the law, because then you're going to jail. Okay, so, and then STO, that's what we're here to talk about today, security tokens. And also another one that's even more trendy, which just means newer in my mind, is the IEO, which is initial exchange offering. I don't know if you've heard much about that, but that's kind of another trendy thing of the moment. Matt, any comments on that?
Yes, thank you for that. I would offer that the discussion of regulation, and even also mention the, let's say like the audits or the slap on the wrist. So we're in North America, or in the United States, where we have a particular level of oversight and respect for financial markets, or not so much. Maybe it's just a large protectionism regulatory environment, but it is what it is, right? And the innovation today is definitely causing the conversation. It's at very least causing a conversation. There's a back and forth between regulatory advisors and entrepreneurs, and it's fairly active, this back and forth. And it certainly involves a lot of institutional players, but one thing that it did involve, I suppose, is a little bit of a smackdown to these ICO rule breakers, which really only resulted in a few $100,000 in fines to people that were pushing the envelope, right? Who, at the height and hysteria, may have been talking about jail time and just what I can remember it from 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, the ICO confusion. Well, so plenty of people went ahead and pushed through anyway, and they're still around. They're still in business. They may have been fined a few $100,000, which may or may not be super consequential. But some of that is played out, and there's certainly more to play out.
Those are the real companies who did it as best as they could, I guess. The ones who were just in it for the money and the quick exit disappeared because there was no accountability. Some of them didn't even have their team page on the website. They don't even know who they are. The most famous one of those, actually, I don't think actually they did it fully legally. I think it was called, I forgot the name of it. Either way, they released it as a totally, it's mainly a joke. I don't know if you remember that one. That it was basically saying, do not invest in this. This is not a company. This is simply this is not something that will go up in value. Basically, it's all the right things that if you say, if this is going to go up in value, it's a security, if it's going to be something that pays dividends. They basically said the anti of all of that and legally raised $3 million or $6 million, I forgot what it was, something like that. And they made no promises, so they didn't have to deliver anything. They just kept the money. Maybe they cashed out of the top, maybe they didn't, who knows. But that was an interesting case. I'll have to look up the name of that again. If anybody knows it, shout it out.
Well, so that environment is what took us from here to here.
Exactly.
Right? Now we have security tokens. We added a word before token. We added the word security.
Yes.
So big innovation. It definitely has a lot of connotations, right? That is what this particular course, is definitely seeking to explore.
Sure.
But it's definitely fair to say that the security and regulatory environment will maybe become grayer as international standards become ubiquitous, become standards, and potentially as new models for raising, which can be things like IEOs, which is an exchange offering where partners or otherwise people in that ecosystem help to underwrite or help to issue. So I'm probably not experienced enough to say, But that's kind of what we're gonna look at today, is this STO spot where we are, and we'll look into some questions like, is it advantageous to entrepreneurs? What
Sure.
asset classes is this to invest for, which is probably some of the stuff that's been discussed. And let's go to the next slide then.
Yep.
What do you say? All right, let's jump off.
Okay, so this is kind of a antagonistic approach to the topic at hand, because we don't want to make the same mistakes that we did during the first big trending of ICO. So hopefully we can create real companies and real things of value. So that's why this question. So what if I told you tokenization would cause you to give up 10% more equity during your seed round, reduce your valuations by 200% on average, and force you to fight additional liabilities every day? Would you still want to STO your company, securitize your company, and offer it up to the public? So maybe yes, maybe no. There's an argument there's a lot of industries that maybe have specific niches that are very ripe for security tokens, and then there's other ones that are maybe not. We have some information in a little bit later slides that'll tell you which industries we think those are ripe for tokenization, and probably early stage ventures, unless you have a lot of funding and are willing to take the regulatory risks, may not make sense, because it's still being pushed as a trend to make quick money, raise quick money, right? And that might not be always a good thing, unless you've had successful ventures in the past and we think that you can do it again. Why should we let these new ventures raise a lot of money quickly and without as much obligations to their investors? So that's kind of why this contrarian question. And Matt, if you want to comment on that.
Okay, so would you do it, I guess, is the actual question, right? Given that these are, it's probably is not some lab derived data from a great scientific experiment that came up with these numbers. It's actually a quote from a good friend of ours.
Yep.
But would you do it, right? So the other side of so this is maybe some assumptions, or this is something that we can just throw down as that like counterpoint. Well, let's go ahead and address the reasons why then, because it already issuing an STO does probably uncork a lot of additional regulatory eyeballs, legal, discovery and opinions, and that's especially if it's a startup. If it's a more traditional, equity play, or let's say more traditional in terms like things of real estate or other categories that Brian discussed, and maybe it makes more sense, right? That's probably the argument. But from a startup's perspective, there is this, additional drama that you're going to get through. If I want to issue people in this room a token, as opposed to a more traditional financial instrument. So on the other side of that drama or that effort that I might have to do is the reasons why. Why would I do it? Why would I go ahead and do this, right? So it can be that I'm riding the wave of innovation. Okay, that's certainly one thing. We're putting on conferences all over the world talking about a new standard for securities transactions, and yet people are still saying we're not ready, right? We're all still just talking about it, and people are giving all these reasons why it's more of a pain in the butt than it is to pursue a traditional model. So why are we going to innovate in this space? Why are entrepreneurs going to innovate in this space is probably the question. So some of those answers are what's been discussed, and those are things like, let's just say like portability, right? Or my ability to enter into marketplaces far outside of my jurisdiction because we've established a particular standard, international standard for tokens. Potentially I'm able to find liquidity. Potentially it offers better democracy to investors because investors now, instead of a landscape of siloed large companies and investors who are put into a category of accredited or non-accredited, it kind of keeps innovation in a particular path, whereas maybe there's more democracy that comes from better portability of security, right? So maybe we want to, as entrepreneurs, maybe we want to be a part of that, even if it's going to risk some of our, let's say, our startup capital. Maybe it's going to add to the runway. It's going to take us longer to get to the place where we want to be, and we're going to have to answer, we're already going to be answering a lot of questions anyway if we're issuing any kind of securities. But maybe we don't want that extra workload, but maybe we do. So why would we want the extra workload? There's all the quotes that are things like 100% of the equities that can be tokenized will be tokenized, right? So there's companies around us at the conferences that are already on stage, already speaking to packed rooms, that are leaders in the space. So an entrepreneur may just want to be positioned there. You may just want to position your venture there, even if it is a pain in the butt. So I think that that is a little bit of like, I can't get into the details of these statistics probably, which are more emotional. But the other side of that is there's certainly people fighting for it. And then there's certainly people that are opting not to. And we can come to a little bit of that down the line here.
So I think that, real quick, still on this slide, I think that the people that are fighting for it, it is a good thing overall because as everything in our lives, everything's becoming more and more digital and less analog unless you have a really nice timepiece. I don't know if you've seen like new cars, like the more high-end cars that are going back to analog because it's just classic, like vinyl. So, but overall, the trend is everything is going digital, right? So the answer is yes. Everything will be securitized digitally soon enough, and it will probably evolve into something that it doesn't even resemble exactly just now. And this is a stepping stone to get there. So trailblazers are making that happen. And ideally, the right people and the right companies are doing it, and some people will have to fail along the way so that we can all benefit from it in the long run. So as Matt was saying, there is a lot of benefits to doing it. One of those for investors is still that quicker exit. So after the 12-month lockup period and after getting all the filings done with the SEC, you can make a quicker exit than you could from a traditional startup company, because usually it's years before you can make any type of exit, as opposed to 1 year, ideally, ideal scenario with an STO. So yeah, that's kind of my comments on that.
I think it's even like a product of the people, right? Because
Sure.
what happened when governments tried to push out Uber, they tried to push out Airbnb, and they had elderly people, disabled people, school kids. I have no other way of getting around. You're inefficient, the taxi service. There's not even a bus service. Like,
Right.
what do you want me to do?
Sure.
So when the people stand up with this, with all we're talking about, it's the army of
Sure.
Everyone just saying, this is us, this is what we're here to do, this is what we want to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what crypto in general, digital assets that are borderless and permissionless, that allowing people to have their own banks that maybe don't have access to that, or other technological solutions that they're just leapfrogging over a lot of other milestones that we've all blazed through over the past centuries. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits for sure.
Why don't we just ask people to throw up like words that are the benefits, right? I could say things like, well, what might it be? Transparency might be one of the benefits of this, more tokenized, more
For a public blockchain.
transferable, right? So transparency. Maybe less insider trading was something that came up in a conversation we had. Things around the blockchain. There's certain rules, rules and decentralized governance that can keep bad actors
Sure.
from it.
Reputation economy all the way.
Right. Yeah. Once it becomes the norm, less insider trading.
Greater adoption.
Now it probably might make it easier.
Faster access to new marketplaces, potentially, the portability, moving this token from a North American entity into an exchange in another country very, very quickly, because the standard
Sure.
is. So,
Self-sovereign identity.
data transparency, data privacy, sovereignty for the issuer, and potentially more sovereignty, maybe more control for the issuer.
Sure.
So
Breaking free
no,
from the chains of centralized power as well. I'm not just meaning like power of government power, like utility power, because microgrids are obviously the trend that we're going to go towards. So instead of having citywide blackouts, you'll just have smaller brownouts, and then if you have your own little nodes and you're truly buying and sharing from all of your neighbors, the entire system is a lot more efficient, right? As opposed to there's one central authority that controls all the power, and you have to buy from them. Even if you're producing your own, you have to still sell it to them, and then they sell it to your neighbors, and it's all just kind of a big inefficient system. So there's a lot of efficiencies created in the utility markets as well. All right, any others benefits you want to throw in there? Okay, we're gonna.
24/7 secondary trading.
That's right.
24/7 secondary trading.
Secondary
Yeah,
markets
that's right.
around the clock.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for the man to tell you when you can trade those shares.
For the entrepreneurs, being more knowledgeable than if we can be more knowledgeable than institutional investors about what's coming, because they are certainly moving to this what will be more efficient marketplace.
Sure.
More efficient global
Absolutely, and if you look at the overall technology and like where we are comparing it to the internet, maybe, I would say maybe we just crossed like 1997, so maybe it's like 98 as far as the early days of the internet, so it's still very early, like probably Netscape Navigator hasn't even been invented yet, or maybe it's just about to be. And
Bandwidth is still too expensive.
right, yeah, exactly.
Bandwidth is too expensive. Cost per transaction. I mean, we are trying to build something for people. You know, self-sovereign identity is huge. Transferability between like borders is everything, really. You know, so having that is really important.
So
Sure.
let's, I'm gonna throw one more PowerPoint up here. So we just discussed a few things that we think are beneficial, probably clearly beneficial, efficiencies in the system. Probably good for all of us, who knows? But on the other side of the coin, then, is something that a good friend of ours said when we were on call recently, Paul.
Mhm.
He said that he challenged us to show him one company that's raised money in Asia with an STO, right?
One successful qualified STO that has done a roadshow in Asia that has.
Successfully met some of the benchmarks.
Right, exactly.
So that's just coming from someone who's an advisor who helps multiple companies and does roadshows. And I guess what he's saying is that on the investor side, right, on the demand side, it's just not a model that people are comfortable investing with right now. So that just goes to, you know, why you may give up more equity, why you may have a lower valuation just because it's new, right? And that was Paul speaking from what, like a week or two ago.
Something like that, yeah. Paul Monson, Digital
yeah.
Asset Advisors.
So again, that's not an international poll of the STO marketplace, but it seems fairly, I can easily understand that as being accurate. There's an education gap. A confused buyer never buys, right? A confused customer buys and not. So those are probably some of the things that, unless you're just a master of confusion, you can confuse people. All right, let's keep going.
All right, let's jump off.
Unless they're stupid.
All right, so this is backpedaling a little bit, just to maybe clear the air a little bit about utility versus security. Here in the US, like I said before, pretty much everything is security until we know otherwise. That's a safe assumption, except for Bitcoin and Ethereum. You know, that's not necessarily holding true overall, but for now, that's a safe assumption to keep yourself and your company and your investors safe. So utility tokens offer a product or service or allow you to get involved with a product or service, either that exists now or a future product or service. So ICOs were a good example of how people were using utility tokens and raising them, which some of those were securities, some maybe arguably are not. And that token allows you to use their app or their service or their voting system or something like that. And a security token is mostly for investment and profit, represents tradable assets, it pays out dividends, share profits, or pays interest or something like that that would make it a security, and therefore you have to register with the right authorities here in the US and other regulatory bodies around the world in different markets. So that is just to clear up the air a little bit about utility versus security. Now there are some that are hybrid. Matt, we were talking about that a little bit earlier. Right?
That's right. You can have a utility token that is a security.
Yep.
That's what a lot of the utility tokens were turned out to be.
Sure.
They use a token that has utility, but was being sold as security, being offered as security.
Sure, because you maybe used that utility token to raise money because it represented shares of your company or product, and it also has a utility within that product or service. Now on the flip side, maybe you have a utility token that you raise zero money with, but you only use it in the ecosystem which you created. And that, as far as I know, breaks no securities laws because you're not using it for any financial gain for anyone or yourself, and it's just a unit of measure. It's almost like an internal point system that is more efficient and scalable and I guess transmittable. So that's probably it for that slide for me. I don't know if you want to cover anything else on that one now.
No, we're good. I think we should.
It's pretty basic
here.
So this is an interesting slide that basically shows a little bit of the issue with the first table here is what a lot of misconceptions are based on around the STO for an early stage companies, i.e. startups, new ventures. So people think that they can take a simple concept and decide to do a massive fundraise via an STO. So, you know, kind of similar to what was going on in the ICO boom, setting up an offshore foundation in a foreign jurisdiction to avoid US laws. higher issuance, platform investment bankers, and then start marketing to everyone.
So just, this is a misconception.
Yeah, the first one's a misconception.
Just, yeah.
Right, so if your team is in the US, then obviously you have to follow the US laws. If you're selling to US investors, you also still have to follow US laws. So month 3 of that misconception track is raise the big $10 million plus and issue liquid tokens. Not to say that you can't accomplish those things. It may be a little bit harder now to do than it was a couple of years ago, but that is definitely not the proper way or legal way to do it. So this down here, this lengthy process down below, is the more realistic visualization of what the process should look like about if you're going to raise a certain amount of money via an STO. And you see that's about a 24-month process, including actually doing all the filings and getting approved for those filings and closing the rounds and getting investment bankers and lawyers and everybody involved in the entire process. Is about 2 years to create a successful STO venture, which is why you don't see that many currently that exist. It's mostly service providers and people that are gearing up toward this new market.
Okay, so the opportunity is that we have all this, amazing new technology and borderless marketplaces that are running 24/7, and then that's the opportunity. And the reality is, in the United States, there's less guidance, and there's other countries that are definitely taking initiative, right? Countries like France, countries like Malta. And maybe a few others, right? The United States is traditionally the largest. We are the economic clearinghouse of the entire world. Money from other countries comes here to trade in our markets. That's traditionally the way that this pyramid has been run. So what happens if all of this causes the U.S. to fall behind in this? What happens if the new marketplaces are borderless? What happens if the new marketplaces, or at least the issuance, is going on in France more so than it's here? Or far more countries are being more agile maybe than we're being here. So what's at risk, right? What's at risk for the United States financial marketplace is potentially starting to chisel away at its dominance, starting to chisel away at its market share, having people in other countries feel very, very secure in the investments they're making into projects all around them, not just coming here to our exchanges, not just coming here to work with the indexes of American companies. So what's at stake is a little bit of that, and that's where the regulatory bodies and the SEC come in with a lot of obligation to traditional investors, a lot of obligation to see that they don't allow in mistakes, right? That's the one side that they have, and the other side is that they need to allow innovation. So the private sector obviously pushes a lot of that forward. The private sector motivates them to make some of these decisions, or all of these decisions ideally. But what is at stake is definitely that a very, very lengthy process of issuing what at this stage is basically a traditional fundraise. It has nothing to do with the issuance of a token and an ICO model to a smart contract from anonymous people all over the world. That's not what's going on in this STO world. This STO world right here is initiating capital conversations and then more or less closing a round, in which case you're just issuing tokens. So this is not the crowdfunding model that it was supposed to be, or could be. It's not yet the crowdfunding. It's not the international crowdfunding model that it could be. And it's certainly not fast to get to that point of success, or that tipping point of $10 billion in liquid tokens. So it's still very traditional, and that's I think that's the important point to make to the entrepreneurs, is that even if you're doing the STO and you're super innovative, you want to pre-sell as much as you can. There's not a massive market of people out there scooping up securities that have all kinds of rules and regulations to them, when maybe they'd rather buy another protocol layer token that has a massively liquid market that can do a 10x pump with or without fundamentals, right? That's just the nature of the environment we're all in now. So I think that's an interesting slide for that reason, and then just to note that what is at stake in the international marketplace is the U.S. dominant and England dominant financial system getting its walls lowered slightly.
Which is definitely, obviously going to happen at some point. Nobody is at the top forever, right? Rome is not at the top of the world right now, but at one point they were. I would say that is the scary thing about this too, is that the disruption is great. I'm an engineer, I'm all about disruption, innovative technologies and changing things, as long as they don't change overnight, because when that happens, a lot of people lose jobs or their lives or resources are locked up where they shouldn't be and things like that. So the scary thing, I think, about lowering that bar too quickly of the U.S. economy being the dominant force and the U.S. dollar being a dominant force is that we will flex our other most dominant force, which is why the U.S. dollar is most dominant still, is our military. That's the main thing that, it's one of the main reasons why we are the dominant force in the world. So if we start to lose that grip, I think we will flex the military might even more, and that's not going to be good for anyone, definitely not going to be good for us. So hopefully we can avoid that and do it in a way that equalizes the markets instead of creates problems. So you have to keep that in mind. I think there's a lot of things to consider that are outside of the scope of just money when we're doing all, because we are creating new economies here, like economies of the future, cities of the future, tech of the future. So it has to be done properly, which is why some of the stuff that we study is global economics and things like that, like things none of us went to school for, but maybe you got a little bit of it in your schooling, but it's something you have to pay attention to if you are creating change in this world, because if you don't consider all the factors, there might be unforeseen challenges you're going to face that are very dire in the near future. So always good to look at the full picture. Jeremy Rifkin is a good resource for economic ideas. Something famously that he quoted that we quote sometimes is that a lot of our economic theories of late are based on Newtonian physics, because that was the trend of the moment when they were all developed, and that is fundamentally flawed because the laws of thermodynamics govern the entire universe. So if you don't consider resources in that whole system, it can be a major problem, and that's one of the problems now, is that our economic theories that our economic systems are based upon do not consider the resources enough. So that's what I'm hoping these securitizing of these resources can help us do, is be accountable for all those resources, so that we're not in this issue where it's all about profit, just for profit's sake. So just throwing that out there, something to consider.
Beautiful vision.
Right?
How many more slides do we have?
We're almost done.
Is this it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. We also have a little bit of pork meat.
Yeah.
A little bit of pork meat.
That's right. So
Okay.
there's a couple more slides. So these are some of the industries that are ripe for the STO markets, we think. And there's a few factors related to that. So they only require one capital raise, they have highly predictable growth rates and predetermined return rates. So these are existing markets such as real estates and funds, financing of movies, infrastructure, pharma, and bonds and debt. So these are all things that have all the right features where it makes sense to tokenize them and make them security offerings.
And to an entrepreneur, we could add, something in that. There's certainly money to be made in the entrepreneur or in the advisor or in the domain expertise area, right? Along with the things that can be tokenized is the companies that are setting up the infrastructure. Those are companies that are going to do well, right? The people that are helping with the issuance will do well. So there's the categories that would do well. It's also just to note that there is an infrastructure being built around those categories, that those may be large institutional players in the future. Those people that are bringing issuance into the marketplace as gateway providers or technology providers is an interesting development to new challengers to the incumbents, to be someone that helps make these markets. Particularly things like IEOs, when those become a big deal. But
Sure.
on that, change is afoot. All right, Dad, the best use case for blockchain. Okay, interesting. A lot of words on this one. I'm watching into this one.
Well, this was going back to the last one. So if you saw the last bullet on the previous slide about things that are ripe for tokenization, debt is one of the easiest. And I don't think necessarily that this holds true that it's the best use for blockchain. It just makes the most sense, like fiscally and structurally in an efficiency manner to tokenize an issue, because usually there's only one capital raise. Little effect on the business practice, a different type, is not versus speculative. Most secure position and has downside protections, and finite timelines of 2 to 10 years allows for supply forecasting. So all those were some of the features of those different industries that were ripe for tokenization. So that's why debt is the easiest. So funds, debt, things like that. And then I'm pretty sure this was the quote that Maddie read off earlier from Paul Monson. So thanks to Paul and Henry. I believe Henry's speaking here tomorrow. Digital Asset Advisors, they have a lot of information on securities They do a lot of great things in the markets as well, so happy to have
Shout
them.
out Paul Monson.
Yeah, exactly.
Big statement right there.
So we could end with something that is, you know, we get into things that are hopeful, things that are inspiring, things that make us all happy here at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's a Friday in LA, a lot of change afoot for the human race.
Sure.
As I said, the song has these verses that are being played out now, and it's only getting louder, and more people are dancing to the music.
Mhm.
So, it's also, we're the first people on the dance floor, so we can, you know, I know a couple loose foot and fancy free guys over
That's right.
there. We can organize, you know, kind of the future landscape of what's going to be done with tokens. We can certainly influence it. I threw out this quote once a long time ago. I heard it on YouTube, which definitely makes it probably untrue. But you know, it's certain that you can influence the future. You know, quantum mechanics says that you can influence the future we can live today and cause some butterfly effect. But there's also some weird angle of that set that says that the future can influence us as well. The future can influence the past. I don't know how that works. But that's just that's interesting. I don't know how that works, but I do know that we can influence the future.
Well, if you can envision the future, you can change your behavior now. So you can, you know, it's almost like, what's his name? What's the guy with the cape? The professor. I forgot his name. Anyways, basically he has a power where he can imagine every possible outcome and scenario of the future, because he's just kind of living them all out over millions of years, and then he chooses the best outcome and goes that way. So he can do that pretty quickly. So that's kind of, and in a small scale, we can do that. We can predict outcomes of our behavior for the future and change our behavior now to create the best possible future for everyone around us. And I think a good way to end this today would be with a little bit of trivia. We always like to throw that in there. I have something to give away to the audience for coming out and giving us your time and energy today. We have a Bitcoin hardware wallet and an Ethereum hardware wallet. So I guess I'm going to do an easy one because Bitcoin just went up today, so it's a little bit different. But roughly, without searching, first person answer wins the Bitcoin. What is the market cap of crypto currently today? Roughly. It's in the billions.
It's like
No, don't read it out.
Someone has to buy it. You already know it.
I'm gonna say 185.
It's very close.
I was going to go around there, but I know it was bought, so I went 200.
Well, no, I mean, it would drop down. It's probably right around there. It was 180 2 weeks ago.
I'll do 175.
Okay.
Okay, last numbers, everybody, about to find out.
60.
60.
Low one.
80.
187.
Okay, remember your numbers because.
We're up by 66% since.
Oh, wait, here we
It's
go.
Probably
700 times 18. Yeah, is it?
Bitcoin didn't go up that much.
Well, looks like it's 174.
Ooh, I think it's that way.
170.
So maybe other things went
Well,
down.
this is without
because they got
going
moved
over?
into Bitcoin. So.
Price the right rules?
Okay, so
I
what
was
was the closest?
175.
174, is that right?
Oh, no, 185 actually. It's 185.
185.
Yeah, market cap 185.
Somebody's doing their research.
Yeah,
All right, here you
there we
go,
go.
sir. Bitcoin hardware wallet by Cold Storage Wallet.
Make sure that's dripping in diamonds.
All right, here's another one. And this one, I don't
You
know
can use that?
who pays attention that much to the traditional markets, but this is more, this is on the derivatives market. So who can spitball a number on the how big the derivatives market is? And a collective derivatives market.
Excellent
Usually
question.
what bonds and equity?
Sure.
70 trillion of equities, 92 trillion of bonds.
Close enough.
That's how convincing me.
Yes.
Okay, so
I'll give it back to a student. So ask another question between the two students we have here.
All right, well, you have to ask the question then, since you're the holder of the token.
Okay, so if I'm the holder of the token, I would say, to get a really good question. Why are we in a security token environment?
Why are we in a security token environment?
And,
Is that a question for all of us?
yeah, sure.
Because it's about trust.
Yeah, well, I think it's more so to be able to have like a non-recourse kind of investment vehicle, which would be like real estate, where you can invest into a token but have it secured by an
This was
asset
for
like real estate?
students of UCLA, excuse me, you both.
Actually goes back to, declared as a commodity. That would be the ultimate answer.
Jack? It's a discussion question, because there is no.
There's no right answer.
There's no perfect answer.
I was gonna say investor confidence and investor trust.
Yeah, trust.
Yeah, liquidity. You
Trust
can-
reputation.
You can trade like a lot of assets that you can split in a lot of shares, like a house, for example, something that you can do, or it's much more difficult to do nowadays without tokens, I guess.
I don't know, give it a try.
No.
Changed my answer actually, efficiency, but there's all kind of reasons. What do we say?
I would say it's because we're trying to protect investors, and the SEC is the regulator of the biggest market player, just trying to do that.
It's a step in the right direction where traditional investors can dabble in, whereas they probably won't touch ICOs, especially after what happened in 2017.
Yo, let's wrap this then, right?
Let's wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for coming out today.
Thank you.
Appreciate you having us. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Can we all take